we'll be discussing some questions of book 1, chapter 1, that is Cold War. And the questions mainly consist of, multiple choice questions or true and false, and a few subjective type one marker questions. So let's get started. So our first question is, who was the president of the communist-ruled Cuba in the year 1961? Okay, so our options are Nikita Khrushchev, Fidel Castro, John F. Kennedy, or none of the above. Right, so yes, the correct answer is Fidel Castro. He was the president of the Cuba in the year 1961. Okay, second question. Cuba was an ally of which of the following? So we all know that Cuba, despite being geographically located nearby United States of America, but it was an ally of the Soviet Union. Okay. Next question. Name the leader of the Soviet Union during the year 1961. So we have to read the questions properly again, that the question is asking about the leader of the Soviet Union, right? So the answer to this question is our option A. Fine. Next question is okay. So our question number 4 is question number 4. In which year did the leader of Soviet Union decided to convert Cuba into a Russian base? Our options are 1961, 1962, 1963 or 1960. So we all know that Cuba was converted as a Russian base in Soviet Union in the year 1962. Okay. Next question. When did the Americans came to know about the nuclear missile bases in Cuba? So our options are 3 weeks before the missiles were planted, 2 weeks after the missiles were planted, 3 weeks after the missiles were planted, or 2 weeks before the missiles were planted. So basically, the Americans, they got to know about the nuclear missiles being planted in Cuba by USSR only 3 weeks after the missiles were planted. Okay. Next question. The clash between the Soviet Union and the United States of America, which occurred due to the conversion of Cuba into a Russian base, was known as the Cold War, the World War I, the Cuban Missile Crisis, or the World War II. So it's a very easy question. So our answer is the Cuban Missile Crisis. You know, the problem that took place, the crisis that took place when when Cuba was converted into a Russian base, when nuclear missiles were planted in Cuba by the Russians, by the USSR. This problem, it was known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay, moving on to the next question. Which of the following statement is correct? So we have been given 4 choices and we have to read all the 4 options carefully. So let us read that together. The Cold War was only the competition, the tension, and a series of confrontation between United States and Soviet Union. Yes, that is correct. But here there is this word only. So it was not only that, right? So let us look at the next options. That the Cold War was a matter of power rivalries, military alliances, and the balance of power, and of ideological conflict over the best and the most appropriate way of organizing political, economic, and social life over the world. Next option is the Cold War eventually escalated into hot war. That is incorrect, because we know that Cold War never escalated into a hot war. Next option, in the Cold War, the Western alliances represented the idea of socialism and communism, while the Eastern alliances represented the idea of liberal democracy and capitalism. Even this is incorrect, because we know that the Western alliances, that was ruled by the US, it was more it mainly represented the idea of democracy and capitalism, while on the other hand, the Eastern alliances represented the idea of socialism and communism, right? So our option is, the correct answer is B, right? So we know that the Cold War was a rivalry of power, of military alliances, of balance and power, and also of ideological conflict. Means that there was a conflict of ideology. Ki, the United States or the Western alliances, they were saying ki capitalism and democracy and liberalism is a better way of ruling the country or the world, while on the other hand the Soviet Union, they had the ideology that socialism and communism is a better way to rule the world or to rule the country, right? So our answer is option B. Okay, next question. The Allied forces were led by which of the following? So we know that the Allied forces, okay, let us look at the options. US, Soviet Union, Britain and France, Soviet Union, Britain, France and Germany, US, Britain, France and Japan, or none of the above. So we know that the Allied forces, they were mainly led by the US, the Soviet Union, Britain and France, right? So our option A is the correct answer over here. You have to remember these countries because most of the time you don't get them as a multiple choice question, but only as a like write the names of the countries which were involved as the allied powers, allied forces. Okay, so you have to remember the names of the country. Fine. Okay, next question. The Axis power were led by which of the following? So we know that the Axis power was led by Germany, Italy and Japan, right? So our answer is option D. Moving on to the next question. Which of the following is true about the end of the Cold War? Which of the following is true about the end of the Second World War? So our answer, our options are: the Second World War ended when the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. The end of the Second World War meant unification of Germany. The end of the Second World War meant the falling of the Berlin Wall, or none of the above, right? So we all know that it's the Second World War was said to be it was said that the Second World War has ended when the United States dropped atomic bombs on the Japanese city of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? So our answer is option A. Next question. Cite which of the following statement were critics and supporters of the US action to bomb the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? So we'll mark them for supporters we'll mark S, and for critics we'll mark C. Okay, so let us look at our options. US action was intended to stop the Soviet Union from making military and political gain in Asia and elsewhere. So this was a critic of the action that was it was a critic of the action of US dropping atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was a critic. Let us look at our second point. This action of US was to show Moscow, that is Russia or USSR, that the United States was supreme. Yes, this was also a critic. Okay, so let me write this correctly. Yeah, it was also a critic. Next, the dropping of the atomic bomb was necessary to end the war. Actually, the supporters of this action, they believe that the bombing of the Japanese cities were necessary so that the Second World War could be ended fast. Okay, so I'll write an S over here. I think it's not visible over there, right? So this is the supporter. Okay, next option. The action was taken to stop further loss of Americans and the American or the Western allies. So yes, even this was a supporter. Okay, great. Moving on to the next question. Okay, moving on to the next question. What was the result of the end of the Cold War, right? So let us look at the options. Rise of the two superpowers, unification of the world, multi-powers in the world, or USSR becoming the superpower. So we all know that when the Cold War ended, it was not the rise of the Cold War. Sorry, it was not the rise of the superpowers. क्योंकि अगर हम लोग बोलेंगे कि rise of the two superpowers means कि अभी तक ये USSR के बीच में और US के बीच में जो Cold War जो चल रहा था वो खत्म नहीं हुआ, right? Unification of the world, yes, that might be, that is the correct answer, that yes, US emerged as the world superpower. Unification means there was only one power, one superpower in the world. Multi powers in the world, that is incorrect, because besides US, after the Cold War, there was no such superpower, or USSR becoming the superpower. So we all know that when the Cold War ended, it was kind of कि US एक तरह से सुपर पावर बन चुका था, right? So USSR did not become the superpower, right? So our options are, so I'll just underline that, highlight that. So our correct answer is unification of the world, that is US becoming the superpower of the world. Okay. Next question, which of the following statement is true about the logic of deterrence? Let us look at our options. One side will be declared as the winner. No, this is incorrect, क्योंकि logic of deterrence में basically इतना ज़्यादा डैमेज होने की पॉसिबिलिटी होती है कि neither side can be declared as the winner or the loser, क्योंकि the both sides will face the enormous amount, the same amount of loss, damages that can be caused, right? So one side will never be declared as the winner. Both sides have the capacity to retaliate against an attack and cause so much destruction that neither can afford to initiate war. Yes. Logic of deterrence prevent both war and rivalry between the superpowers. No, this is not correct. क्योंकि देखो, a logic of deterrence, it can prevent war from taking place, because both the parties, both the countries will be like, कि my opposition has a similar power as me, so there are chances that only damages will take place, and no such, no such winner or no such losers can be declared, right? But जो rivalry होती है, the rivalry that is there between the superpowers, that cannot be prevented by the idea of logic of deterrence, right? So our answer is B, that is both sides have the capacity to retaliate against and cause so much destruction that neither can afford to initiate the war. Okay. Next question, when did NATO came into existence? So we all know that NATO, it came into existence in April 1949. Okay. Next, in which year was the Eastern Alliance, or the Eastern Alliance, that is the Warsaw Pact, created? So we all know that you have to revise these years very carefully, because it usually comes as a one marker question, and options are generally not given, so you have to write by your own, right? But we know that the Warsaw Pact was created in the year 1955. It was basically in May 1955 that the Warsaw Pact was created. Okay. Next question. What was the principal function of the Warsaw Pact? To counter the US only? No. To bring more allies into the Eastern alliances? Not really. To look after the economic and military needs of the Eastern alliances? No. To counter NATO forces, especially in Europe? So yes, this is our correct answer. Actually, it has been given in the book as well, so you have to read each and every line carefully for one marker questions like these. So it has been written in the book that the principal function of the Warsaw Pact was to counter NATO's forces into the Europe. Okay. Next question. What is the full form of the following? So I have already given the full form of the following, so you have to remember the full form of these, especially the first two, that is CATO and CENTO, because they usually come as a one marker question. NATO not so much, NAM also not so much, but it never harms to remember these, right? So the CATO is Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, CENTO is Central Treaty Organization, NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and NAM non-aligned movement, right? So these two are very important for you to remember the full form, because most of the time they come in the paper, right? Moving on to the next question. Okay, question number 18. Mark the following statement as true or false. The superpowers needed the smaller states as their allies because the smaller states had vital resources. The smaller states had vital resources such as minerals and oil. So yes, this is true. Let me just write down there. So yes, this is true. Next question. The smallest states has territory from where the superpowers could launch their weapons and the troops. Yes, this is also true. Location from where the superpowers could spy on each other. Yes, so the smaller states, the smaller countries, they they had very good locations from where the superpowers could spy on each other. Our next is the superpowers wanted to give economic support to the smallest states. That is not correct. Actually, it was the contrary, that the superpowers thought ki, so many smaller states or so many smaller countries, they could in some way or the other aid them for their military, to get them better equipped with their military powers, right? So this is false. Next, the royalty of allies suggested that the superpowers were winning the war of ideas. Yes, it basically means that, if one small country or any, if one country is supporting, let's say, US, it basically means that the ideology of the US is winning. Or on the other hand, let's say that if there is one country which is supporting, let's say, USSR, it basically means that USSR ideology, that is of communism and socialism, is winning, right? So it's basically proved ki, which country is which country's ideology is better, the US or the USSR, right? So this statement is true. Moving on to the next question. Name any 3 treaties signed by the 2 superpowers that signed by any 2 superpowers for arms control between the period of 1960s and 1970s. So basically you have to know that between this period of 1960s and 1970, that is in one decade, the US and the USSR, they signed 3 different treaties, so that for arms control, means ki neither of the 2 superpowers could the rivalry between the 2 superpowers could lead to a hot war. So these 3 treaties signed is the limited test ban treaty, the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, and the anti-ballistic missile treaty, right? Next question. Who are the 5 founding members of NAM and which country did they belong to? So we all know that there was one leader from Yugoslavia, and there was one leader from India, one leader from Egypt, one leader from Indonesia, and one leader from Ghana, right? So if you remember, at least 3 of these names that I have given over here, of these names, especially where they belong to, and the names of these leaders, at least 3 of them, so you'll be good to go, right? So these are the answers. Fine. Moving on to the next question. Where and when was NAM first summit held? So the first summit of NAM was held in Belgrade in 1961. Next question. Where and when was the 18th summit of NAM held? So it was held in 2019 in Azerbaijan, right? I'll just underline this. Next question is, the policy of staying away from allies should not be considered as isolationism or neutrality. Explain why. So basically this is a subjective type question, which often which might come in the paper as a 1 marker question, objective type ki aapko samjhana hai ki why the policy of staying away from the allies, that is the NAM policies, why it was not a signature of neutrality, or why it is not concerned with neutrality, or it is not concerned with passiveness, why it is not considered ki bhai jo NAM ke jo countries hote hain wo they are kind of isolate themselves, right? So this is the answer, that non-alignment is not isolationism, because isolationism basically means remaining aloof from the world affair. NAM on the other hand, it played an active role in mediating between the 2 rivalries, that is between the US and USSR, in cause of peace and stability, to cause peace and stability into the world. Okay, and NAM is also, it cannot be said to be neutral. Why? because neutrality basically refers to the principle of or the policy of staying away or out of the war, right? But NAM, on the other hand, the NAM countries, they were very much involved in wars at because they, you know, they worked, they were mainly working towards preventing war between taking place into other countries, and also जिन countries में war already हो रहा था, so NAM also helped to, you know, to overcome these wars in those countries, right? So this is the answer. Next, moving on to the next question. Give the full form of the following. So, you know, again, these two, the first two, are very much important because you know, they come for the paper key. You know, you have to give the full form of NIEO, or you have to give the full form of UNCTAD. So it basically, NIEO is New International Economic Order, and UNCTAD is United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, right? So it was mainly it was mainly formed to aid the newly developed countries to become more economically stable, right? So it used to give the newly developed countries some kind of privileges or some kind of power, say, so that they could become economically more stable, and so that they could get a better hold of their own, of their own country, of the minerals or the resources that were found in those countries. Okay. Next question. In which year did India sign a treaty of friendship with USSR for 20 years? So it was in August 1971. Okay. Next question. So again, these questions are mainly subjective type questions because one marker question में जरूरी नहीं है कि only one marker will come, only MCQ will come, or only fill in the blanks will come, only, you know, miss and match or true and false will come. Even one marker, you know, subjective type questions can also come, right? So moving on, in which year did the Cold War ended? So we all know that Cold War, it ended in 1991. Okay. Next question. Highlight any two ways in which NAM also served India's interest. So we all know कि पहली first reason we can say that NAM served India's interest because NAM, it allowed India to take international decision that served its interests rather than the interest of the superpower and the allies. And secondly, we can say that India, because it was a founding member of NAM, and India was such a big country, such a newly independent countries which has taken such a big step. It was able to balance one superpower against the other. Basically, what was happening, that whenever India felt ki, let me give an example, that India felt that US is kind of bullying it or pressurizing it or ignoring it, then it would shift its focus towards the USSR, and vice versa. Like when USSR used to bully India, or when it pressurize India, or ignore India in some manner or the other, India would shift its stance toward the USSR and ask for help from the US. Okay. Yeah, so last question of this chapter is analyze any two ways in which India's policy of NAM was criticized. So first of all, the critics of NAM, they said that India's non-alignment, they said that it was unprincipled because India was mainly pursuing its national interest, and often refused to take any kind of any kind of firm stand on the international issues. Example of these international issues, you will see them in the chapters of book 2. Okay. Second critics of NAM, that India is serving its own needs. Yeah. So second, we can say that the critics said that the India was inconsistent and took contradictory posture, and when India signed a treaty of friendship for 20 years with USSR, it was again criticized and said that India is mostly inclined toward the USSR. But to counter this point, basically India said that it signed the treaty of friendship with USSR for 20 years because it needed some kind of support in the Bangladesh war that was going on, and it needed some kind of help. And signing the treaty with USSR does not mean that India will not have a good relationship with the US. Okay. So yes, this is it for this chapter. if any one of you have any doubt or want to ask any other further question on this chapter, you can always write in the comment section, and your query will be solved as soon as possible, right? So we'll meet again. I'll prepare some more questions on book 1 of chapter 2, and we'll meet again in few days. Okay, take care. Bye bye.